What's happening, Celtic fans? Another day and another pretty quiet day in paradise so far. A couple of wee bits of news today. Reo Hatate is linked with a move back to Japan, which anybody who knows my thoughts on Reo Hatate and stuff, it was over for him years ago. No good enough for Celtic in my opinion anymore. Had a great couple of years at Celtic under Ange Postecoglou. He looked the part. I was a big fan of Reo Hatate, but over the past couple of seasons he's been way off it. Particularly last season, I thought that was just the end for him. He's probably just wanting to go back to Japan now and see out the rest of his career and stuff like that. It's a shame though, because he did have loads and loads of ability, Reo Hatate, and it's, people think I'm being, harsh on him and stuff like that, but he just wasn't good enough in the end. He just wasn't. I mean, I didn't want Reo Hatate to fail in the end and stuff. I wanted him to leave Celtic in a high and that, but he'd let himself down in the end. I think, his ability and his attitude and stuff like that, because it just looks like a totally different player to me from when he first signed at Celtic and that. So I'd be more than happy for Reo Hatate to move on and wish him nothing but the best. Go over back to Japan and try and carve out the rest of your career and style and stuff, because he's obviously still got ability. Maybe it was an attitude problem, I don't know. We don't know these things, I mean? We can all speculate and have our own ideas of how people or why people, don't perform to levels they used to perform at, or, it's whatever. I don't know what the reason is that Reo Hatate just didn't do it, but he didn't do it. And it's a shame, but he's got to move on now. We've got to look at our own squad and try and improve things, try and make things better. There was rumours at the end of last season that Hatate had fell out with Martin O'Neill and stuff like that. Don't know how true that was. Maybe he just wasn't happy that he wasn't playing so much because he was at the team for the last few months of the season. And I think that was just based on total performance. His performances weren't good for him. But so that's one piece of news. Apparently Efren Juarez, there was rumours of him coming in at Celtic and being a member of Martin O'Neill's backroom staff in order for him to one day be manager. Again, just shows you about paper talk, because he's set to sign for someone as a manager and stuff like that. So listen, this is what I said in my previous video, is do not believe everything that you're reading at the moment. Just watch who your sources are. Be very vigilant of who you're reading and why you're reading, because there's loads and loads of, fake news out there, as the term goes, the last few years. So just really watch, because it could be just somebody looking for a wee bit of clickbait. But I mean, who knows what Celtic are thinking, who knows what their plans are for the future. At the end of the day, none of us know how it's going to go or whatever. Seen wee kind of bits and bobs flying about the various things and stuff, and if it's various media outlets, I'll just ignore it. If it's big guns to do with Celtic, like Stephen McGowan, Anthony Joseph, Fabrizio Romano, then I will fully take that on board and believe that, and then there's a couple of other ones on X, like Celtic here and stuff like that. They seem to be knowing what they're doing and stuff, so you've just got to be really careful of what you read and who says it. Another thing I was reading earlier on is about Celtic could potentially be having to play their opening game next season as champions on a Monday, because of the Commonwealth Games that are going to be in Glasgow and stuff like that. Don't really think it matters, to be honest with you, what day of the week it is. I don't know how big a deal that is, to be honest with you. I think that people will turn up, whether it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday or Sunday. People would turn up and celebrate that flag day. It'll be interesting to see who's going to be the team that we play. Give us a standing ovation. What do you call that? An order, a ceremony thing when you walk out. Can't remember what that's called now, but that'll come back to me straight after this video, I guarantee it. Guard of honour, there we go. But don't think it really matters what day of the week it is. But it's still all quiet on the Martin O'Neill front, still all quiet on the backroom staff. Nothing's been happening player-wise from what I've seen. But we've got the England game tonight. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to chill out and watch that later on. Before that, I've got a Portugal game. Messi scored a hat-trick last night for Argentina. Wow. What a player, man. Absolute player, isn't he? And the first goal was immense. The last goal was brilliant. Just old Messi just never ever loses it, you know what I mean? 38 years of age, still producing goals like that, still making his nation, you know, World Cup contenders, because that's exactly what they are. Looking forward to the England game. I know this isn't a popular opinion, but I really do believe that England can go all the way and win this tournament, and the reason being is they had Gareth Southgate as their manager for years, and yet they still knocked on the door. They got to World Cup semi-finals, they got to European Championship finals, and that was a pretty terrible manager, a pretty terrible negative manager. So what they're going to do when now they've got a top manager, you know what I mean? Thomas Tuchel's a great manager. I really rate him. He's won Bundesligas, he's won Champions Leagues. He knows exactly what it takes to win things. The squad that he's picked is getting a lot of criticism, and I understand why, you know, because, you know, he's picked guys like Jordan Henderson and stuff like that who probably won't kick a ball, but yet he's left out Cole Palmer and Phil Foden and that. But we'll see what happens tonight with that. But as for Celtic, I mean, when it comes to this World Cup, I'm looking out for the results, you know what I mean? And I want to watch their games, and I've been watching the highlights. I watched the Canada game just so that I could see AJ, Alistair Johnston, pretty quiet in the game. Pretty quiet, but I mean, he's still a top level player, you know what I mean? And it was the first opening game of the World Cup for Canada and stuff like that, and it was in front of their home fans. There was a lot of pressure on them to get the job done. It was 1-1 in the end, and they got a good equaliser for that, because I think Bosnia were probably the better team in the first half, and then Canada came back into the second half. They actually should have probably won the game, if I'm being honest, towards the end and stuff, but, you know, good for him. I'm sure I think they're playing at the end of the week. So, Benjamin Nygren has been playing for Sweden. Directly, pretty poor for him, because he came on as a sub for Tunisia against Sweden, and they get battered 5-1, so obviously I'm still looking out for the Celtic boys in the Scotland team, you know. You'll get Kieran Tierney, Anthony Ralston, these boys. So there's plenty still to look out for in the World Cup. Plenty of Celtic talking points, as there always is, even though it's quiet days, you know what I mean? Supporting Celtic and try to do Celtic content is a 365 days a year job, because there's always something happening. Even if it's only quiet days, there's always, like, for instance, the day was a really quiet day, but, you know, the news is coming out that we may have to play on a Monday, and Reo Hatate is possibly going back to Japan and all that. So there's always something to discuss when it comes to Celtic. But anyhow, like I say, any other news that comes about, I will be straight on here to let you know, as always.